Good evening. On behalf of the New York Mills Cultural Center Board, I want to welcome you to the 26th Annual Great American Think-Off. My name is Justine Anderson, and I am a new board member for the New York Mills Cultural Center. However, I am not new to New York Mills. I grew up in this quaint town and vividly recall when the Great American Think-Off began. Although I was just in elementary school, I remember the hype and the buzz around this small town that C-SPAN was coming. I left New York Mills after high school and moved to Fargo-Moorhead for college and then subsequently work. I lived there for 10-ish years before moving back to this area in 2011. I especially recall during this time 2004's question of should same-sex marriages be prohibited, and striking up casual conversations with college friends about the question because of the social perception at that time. Finding out you're growing a human inside of you and needing to raise said human puts a person on the fast track to deciding their next path in life, and raising my family in a community like New York Mills quickly rose to the top. Fast forward to current day, and I currently serve as the VP of Finance at Perm Health. When attempting to recruit new physicians and practitioners to our region, arts and culture is a question that frequently presents itself. Being able to highlight the Cultural Center and other regional art facilities makes the attraction to our prospects even more appealing. I found myself 6-ish months ago wanting to become more involved in the community I grew up in and wanting to learn more about this organization that has been vital in my hometown. I continually watch on Facebook this organization grow and impact large audiences, and become even more amazed at New York Mills' ability to support an organization like the Cultural Center in such a rural place. It truly is notable, and I am grateful for the support that makes it possible, as well as the opportunity to help this organization into the future. The New York Mills Regional Cultural Center is to be a real hub for creativity, community vitality, and lifelong learning in the arts. That's our mission. Our vision is to connect people to artists and rich cultural experiences in rural Minnesota, celebrating the local and being a window to the world. I just really think those two statements are super cool. I have no doubt that we are living these values in everything we do and using them to guide our decisions. Since numbers are a form of my creativity and artistry, my welcome here wouldn't be complete without throwing some at you. Per the recent Ottersdale County Creative Minnesota report, the annual impact organizations like the Cultural Center have on our county is huge. It's actually $6.9 million to be exact. There are 22 nonprofit arts and cultural organizations in Ottersdale County, and along with that, there are 588 creative workers. I think some of the finest are right here in New York Mills. Our county ranks 6th in total annual arts attendees, drawing over 100,000 people in arts and cultural activities who spend $1.6 million in the county that would not otherwise be sent here. I think the numbers right there speak for themselves. Having said all of this, it is now time for me to turn it over to our extraordinary leader, Betsy Roeder. Betsy and the team do an amazing job of carrying out the mission and values I just mentioned, and have been instrumental in growing our impact. This is evidenced by the Great American Think-Off, our increased membership, programs, and financial viability. We are very grateful for her leadership. Again, on behalf of the New York Mills Regional Cultural Center Board, welcome, and prepare yourself to be challenged, excited, and inspired this evening. Thank you.
Yet, so I'm still apply. Hopefully you will. Hello everybody, thanks Justine for that warm welcome, and welcome to all of you once again to the 26th Annual Great American Think-Off. I'm Betsy Roeder, as Justine mentioned. I'm so pleased to be the director of the center and to welcome all of you here tonight. You know, they say that it takes a village to raise a child, and as a working mother of 4, I wholeheartedly agree. And I would add that it also takes a village to sustain a rural, nonprofit arts organization. and we have a pretty amazing village. I want to acknowledge the hard work that has gone into planning this event and all the programs that we offer year-round, and share my gratitude for all of our staff members, including Cheryl, Talia, and Evan, who are experiencing their first Think Off this year, as well as Tammy, who's been around even longer than I have, Derek, who's been working from afar this year, and Tyler, who's always willing to do whatever needs to be done. We have a great crew. I'd also like to thank the Minnesota State Arts Board and the McKnight Foundation for essential operating support. Farmers and Merchants State Bank, the City of New York Mills, and the New York Mills Lions Club for annual contributions that support programs throughout the year, and all of our business and individual donors. I'd also like to thank Mid-State Auto Auction for being our primary event sponsor once again this year, as well as all of the businesses who supported us with ads in the program. Thanks also goes to Grassroots for providing the beautiful flowers here tonight that you're seeing, the New York Mill School and Matt Holberg for the tech support, and the Whistle Stop for hosting our finalists each year in the beautiful bed and breakfast. I also want to thank the Think Off Committee, and especially Chair Alice Martin, who continues to be the source of knowledge, the workhorse, and the champion for the event. Alice's no-nonsense leadership, always thoughtful approach, and steel trap of a memory really do make the Think Off continue to operate smoothly year after year. And while I admit that she used to scare me just a little bit when I first started working with her, I now look forward to it as one of my favorite parts of Think Off planning. Gratitude also goes out to all the board members and volunteers, including our Boy Scouts who are here collecting ballots again tonight. It takes all of us to make the event successful. So from ushering, working at the merchandise table, collecting and counting those ballots, donating food, or leaving early to set up at the Cultural Center, we truly could not pull this off without our village. And we want to thank each and every one of you who've helped in any way this weekend. And speaking of volunteers, I have to share something that I've noticed in my 3 years since I've been director. It seems that every time that things get a little crazy and we really need help, whether it be monetary donations, assistance with a neglected project, or volunteers for a big event, magically people come through. During my first year as director, I was talking with a patron who asked how things were going. And though I am, as a rule, always optimistic, a little bit of nervousness, or maybe even desperation, must have come through, and he asked, "What do you need?" And then promptly gave me a check for $2,000. That doesn't happen in the real world, does it? And just this week, I drove past the sculpture park and noticed that the labyrinth at the sculpture park needed mowing. And by the time I emailed our amazing labyrinth creators, George and Sherry Biltz, George was already out there magically taking care of it. Thanks, George, for that. And then there was the infamous Big Pig surprise, which was the supposed robbery of a wooden pig bench from our deck turned random act of kindness. And when I shared that story on Facebook, I don't know if any of you saw it, it had an organic reach of 1,857 people with 106 likes and 6 shares. Wow. I guess I'm not the only one out there who is amazed and impressed with our magic core of volunteers and donors out there. I joked last week that sometimes I think the Cultural Center runs on blood, sweat, tears, and magical fairies. So to all of you who've shared your magic over the years, thank you. So the Great American Think Off began in 1993, and we've gathered annually on the second Saturday of June ever since to debate philosophical questions of all varieties, timeless, timely, and often in between. Over our 26-year history, we've received essays from all 50 states and many countries. This year, essays came from 29 states and 4 countries. It's always fun to see the national reach that this little philosophy contest, located in tiny, quaint New York Mills, has each year. I'd also like to share just a little bit about the Cultural Center's history. We were founded in 1990 by John Davis as the New York Mills Arts Retreat, originally an artist residency program. In 1991, John learned that the City of New York Mills was planning to tear down what had been Garvin's furniture store but had recently closed. Working his magic, John convinced the city that instead of tearing down the building, they give him $35,000 to create an art center. This is the equivalent of the city of Minneapolis giving more than $1 million on a percentage of budget basis. The city agreed, and the New York Mills Regional Cultural Center was born. Within the first 5 years, New York Mills saw job growth of over 40%. Since then, the Cultural Center has been recognized as a national model for rural arts and economic development, recognized by the Northwest Area Foundation in 1993 and in President Obama's NEA Our Town program in 2011. Justine shared our mission and vision earlier, and I believe that the community vitality portion of our mission also speaks to one of the key reasons for our continued success. We truly believe in the importance of making connections through the arts and celebrating our local culture as an essential part of a thriving community. So we're now a multidisciplinary arts center offering a wide variety of programs and community events like the Think Off, as well as our annual Fish House Festival and puppet pageant each summer, the Longest Night Music Festival each year on the winter solstice. We have a visual arts gallery, performing arts series, arts learning opportunities both at the center and in schools, an artist residency program, a sculpture park, and more. I've been honored to be the director for the past 3 years. During that time, I've utilized my background in education and business and finance to focus not only on artistic excellence, but also financial sustainability. We've made great strides as an organization and continue to improve each year. That said, we do still have a big job every year to meet our revenue goals and continue to be able to fund all of our programs. Last year, our revenue was evenly balanced between earned income, grants, and contributed revenue, including our contributions from members and donors, for which we're very grateful. Thank you to all of you who are members out there, and if you're not a member, please consider becoming one tonight to help us meet our goals and continue programs like the Think Off. Before I introduce tonight's moderator, there are a few more people I need to thank. First, tonight's 4 finalists sitting in our front row. As I welcomed the 4 of them yesterday, I shared that at this point, the Great American Think Off is all about them. So we came up with the idea 26 years ago, we came up with the question, we've done some logistical planning, but all of you are here to hear the debate, and this year's finalists are going to be great. They've come from far and wide to serve as this year's example of civil debate. Thank you, Anthony, Mark, Ruby, and Tanya for being here with us this weekend. We're thrilled to have you. And finally, thanks to all of you, our audience members. You're the last, but certainly not the least, essential ingredient to the continued success of the Think Off. You come, you buy tickets, maybe some refreshments or merchandise in the lobby at intermission. You listen with open minds, you vote for who you think makes the best argument. Some of you become members, and many of you continue the conversation at our reception following tonight's debate. Thank you for being here tonight and for giving us a reason to continue doing the work that we do. Now, without further ado, I have the great honor and pleasure of introducing our 2018 Great American Think Off moderator, Ashley Hansen. Ashley is a social practice and theater artist, community organizer, and advocate for arts in rural areas. She is the co-founder of Play Space Productions, a community-driven theater company that creates original musical productions celebrating small-town life, which is currently gathering stories for the creation of Ottertail County the Musical in celebration of our county's 150th anniversary coming in September. Ashley is also the founder of the Department of Public Transformation. You'll see her bus at the center tonight. It's a national arts collective that highlights, connects, and supports rural-based artists working at the intersection of creativity and community. She's the director of the Small Town Care City Artist in Residence program in Granite Falls, Minnesota, and she was recently named a 2018 Obama Foundation Fellow. She believes strongly in the power of people, places, and play, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have her here in New York Hills moderating this year's Think Off debate. Please help me in welcoming Ashley Hansen.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 2018 Great American Think Off. I am so excited to be here. This is my very first year at the Think Off. Can I see a show of hands of who else it's their first time? Wow! Great, welcome. We'll go through this together. It's going to be like a ping pong game. We're looking back and forth at the debaters as they argue out their points. So, as I said, I'm honored to be here with some of the country's greatest minds, and even more honored to have the opportunity to moderate this rich and lively debate. As soon as I was asked to be the first female moderator of the Great which I'm sure many of you did as well. What has really shaped my life? The successes that I have achieved or the times when I have failed? I'm a Leo, which means I have a pretty big and pretty delicate ego. So my initial response was, of course, that it was my successes. And I started to think back on all of the gold stars that I've received and how those gold stars have helped pave the way to light my way throughout my life and reminding me that I was on the right path, giving me strength and courage to go on. But on that journey down memory lane, I also remembered the bumps in the road, those moments when I stumbled and had to pause to heal my wounds, and how much reflection and learning came from those moments. And as I went back and forth on this, I realized what an incredible question that the Think Off team has come up with. Of course, there's not an easy answer. And luckily, we have 4 great thinkers here with us tonight to help us open our minds, release our own biases that we bring into the room, and really deeply listen. And then decide on who can make the strongest argument on the side of success or failure. Okay, another show of hands. Who here has already made up their mind who they think the answer is? You don't have to share what you think it is, but you're like, I know. Okay, all right. So, and then how many of you are like, I'm just here to learn? Awesome, great.
It's a little hard to hear you.
Oh,
I can't hear you.
I'll move forward. Thank you. This can be a conversation, so if you need anything, let me know. Okay, before we hear from our 4 debaters, I'd like to invite you all to bring yourself fully present into this room. So, place your feet firmly on the floor. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you don't, just look down towards the ground. We're just going to get present with ourselves for a moment. Bring to mind all of your preconceptions about this question, the stories that come to mind, the experiences that you've had. And imagine those thoughts just rolling from your mind, down your arms, and out your fingertips. Imagine your mind opening up to be a receptive vessel for the incredible stories and strong arguments that will be heard this evening. Commit to listening deeply and give yourself permission to allow your mind to be changed this evening. It is so rare to be in a space like this where we can come together for civic discourse and really listen to 2 sides of an argument with an open mind. So let's take advantage of this moment and fully embrace the reason why we are here together. So with that, you can open your eyes, and we're going to just take 1 minute to introduce yourself to your neighbor, someone that you did not come here with. So just hold on 1 second. We're going to find out their name, what brings them to the Think Off, and 1 caveat. Sometimes when you do this introduction moment, it turns into chaos. So when you hear me say, let's bring it back, then you'll wrap up your conversation and bring it back home. Cool? Great. Okay, so go ahead and meet your neighbor. Ask them what brings them here to the Think Off. You can definitely feel free to use social media throughout the event if you want to tweet or post on Facebook about all of the incredible time that you're having here in New York Mills tonight. The hashtag is ThinkOff2018, but we don't want any noises going off while our debaters are deep in thought, so please silence your cell phones. As you're doing that, I'm going to explain the format for this evening. Round 1. Two people arguing on the side of success will debate against each other, and then you will get to vote on who made the strongest argument. Your ballots for the first 2 rounds are on the first page of your program. You don't need them right now, but just so you know where they are. You will also have the opportunity to submit questions that might get selected to be asked during the final round. The Boy Scouts will come around and collect your votes and your suggested questions if you have any. Then we'll move on to round 2. 2 people arguing on the side of failure will debate against each other, and once again, you will vote on who made the strongest argument. You'll submit your questions, and your votes and questions will be collected again by the Boy Scouts for the final round. Then we'll move to an intermission, during which time we'll tally the votes and review the questions that might get included in the final round. And after we return from intermission, we'll begin our 3rd round, in which the winners of the first 2 rounds will debate against each other, and then you'll vote to select the final winner, the greatest thinker. The ballots for this final round are on the last page of your program, which I'll tell you again later. There will then be a very, very short intermission. We'll tally the votes, and then we'll reconvene for our award ceremony, presenting 2 bronze medals, 1 silver medal, and finally 1 gold medal to America's greatest thinker right here in New York Mills. With that, are you ready for the Great American Think-Off? Let's hear it one more time. Are you ready for the Great American Think-Off? The question, which plays a larger role in shaping one's life, success or failure? Arguing on the side of success playing a larger role will be Mark Bland and Rudy San Miguel. Arguing on the side of failure playing a larger role will be Tanya Abadi and Anthony Berryhill. The extensive and super impressive bios of each of our debaters, along with a copy of the essays you will hear, will be found in your program if you're interested. But first, we're going to bring out our round 1 debaters. So let's have a huge round of applause for Mark Bland and Rudy San Miguel. So Mark, you're here all the way from Virginia Beach. Great. Oh, thank you. So you're here all the way from Virginia Beach. What is one thing that you really love about Virginia Beach this time of year?
It's warm.
Great, awesome.
It's sunny and warm, 92 degrees today.
Perfect, perfect. And Rudy, you're originally from small town in Illinois, but now you live in New Orleans.
I do.
Did you say New Orleans or New Orleans?
New Orleans.
New Orleans, sorry.
That's how the locals say.
New Orleans. What do you miss about small town life living in the amazing city of New Orleans?
Quiet. Yeah. It's so loud.
So you're getting some nice warm weather, you're getting some peace and quiet while you're here. You guys are happy to be here in New York Mills.
Yes.
Awesome. Me too. Okay. Earlier today, a coin toss determined that Mark will read his essay first, and he will also be taking the first question in the debate. After Mark reads his essay, then Rudy will read his essay, and then each of the debaters will be asked 2 questions designed to expand on their essays. The person with the question will be allowed 2 minutes to answer, and the other contestant will be given 1 minute for rebuttal. Following this back and forth, each debater will be given 1 minute for final comments. Okay? That's the format. So we're going to begin with Mark.
Good evening. Good evening, New York Mills. Good evening, Minnesota. And by the way, I just read that USA Today voted Minnesota as the best run state in the country. I want to say that the way they have treated me this week, so warm and kind, I can say that I would vote you the friendliest state in the country. All right, let's do it. Like paying taxes and dying, success and failure become a part of the human condition from which we cannot escape. If you fall off the horse or bicycle, you get back on it. Do that enough times and you become proficient at the task of writing. You started with failure and ended with success, but which played a larger role in shaping your life? Success was the winner if you can now ride the horse or bike. Failure may have held you back for a while, but success gave you the confidence to continue. My first memorable experience with success came in high school, when I realized I could outrun any student in my class. Finally, I was actually better at something than most. I was good at baseball and basketball, boxing, tree riding, train jumping, and football, but I was great at running. Track became the natural outlet for my talent. I didn't win every meet, and it is true that these failures caused me to work harder, but the wins were what kept me coming back. What gave me pleasure was winning the 800 meter for the city. The losses no longer mattered. Success kept me running. Had I settled for failure, I would have never made it back to the starting line. 1 year after graduation, I found myself in the Army in Stuttgart, Germany. I was put in a slaughterhouse where I did meat inspections for the military. Not one person in the slaughterhouse spoke English, and I didn't speak a word of German. The days became long and lonely, and the work more difficult without the ability to communicate. Every evening, I learned 10 phrases that I could use the next day. Within 3 months, I communicated effectively in the language. I could say anything I wanted, I could read fairly well, and over a beer and bratwurst, I could understand the lunch jokes. Because of my success with German, by month 4 as a PFC, I was selected to be the chauffeur for the commanding officer of our unit. No PFC had ever driven the colonel before, and some of the soldiers had as many as 3 tours in Germany. I was given a car, a Jeep, 3/4-ton truck to use at my wish. No more long days at the slaughterhouse, no formation, no field maneuvers. Success even came with a promotion. After returning to the States, I attended Old Dominion University, where I earned my first degree, a BA in German. 40 years later, I retired as a high school and middle school German teacher from the Virginia Beach schools. My success in German had shaped my entire career. Failure was nowhere in sight. Before I began my teaching career, however, I went through a 10-year period of constant failure. I worked as a truck driver, a salesman, bowling lanes technician, waiter, chauffeur, clerk, truck loader, carpenter, lifeguard, gas station attendant, mechanic, steel supervisor, handyman, trapper, crab boat captain, and furniture deliverer. None of these jobs provided enough income to support a family. Failure had kept me company all the way. By the time I was offered my first teaching position, I was 6 months behind in my trailer park rent. I was driving a car I bought for $200. My trailer was in desperate need of repair. We didn't even have an operative furnace, and we were one payment away from losing our trailer. The Christmas of that year, I bought my wife a pair of underwear, my daughter a pair of socks, and my son a toy truck. I chopped down our Christmas tree in the woods, and we spent the holiday without heat. I do know the meaning of failure, and I understand its devastation, but I didn't let it shape my life. During my years as a teacher, I also fell in love with chess. Here, success was slower in the making. Mr. Failure shook my hand over and over. Bobby Fischer stated that that you have to lose 1,000 games before you begin to get better. Well, I lost my 1,000 games, but today I have 64 trophies, several $1,000s in prize money, 23 trips to the World Open, and just 6 days a week. My Mr. Failure only rides in my back seat and bothers me once in a while. Success sits beside me in the front and keeps me company.
We will now hear Ruby's essay.
Thank you. Good evening. I will echo what Mark said. Everyone here has been so wonderful and nice, and I know it sounds like I'm just copying him, so I will add that you're also very attractive. I'm not making that up. The automatic doors at Winn-Dixie shuddered open as I tightened my grip on the plastic bag full of coins. A frail man with watery eyes and a "Hello, I'm Roger" name badge pointed me toward a machine that would take my change and turn it into roughly 85% its value in cash. At 41, I possessed 2 master's degrees, $12 in my bank account, and this bag, which I hoped would be enough for a loaf of bread, some peanut butter, and at least half a tank of gas. As I poured the change into the bowels of the hunkering machine, I thought of a favorite quote from Mary Pickford, in which she assured us that each day is a new chance for success. The quote ends, "This thing we call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down." Despite being virtually unable to secure a job in any field remotely related to any degree I've earned, I've managed to squeak by on meager tips for miserable food service jobs and hobble out some semblance of a life with the additional assistance of good friends and family, a patient partner, and great beer. For more than 2 decades, I've been floating in endless choppy waters that will one day drown me. But I hold on, waiting for the right ship to pass. As Pickford suggests, I get up. Some time ago, I was given a book, the name of which I cannot presently recall, written by a former Harvard-educated attorney who, after many years of unsatisfactorily earning piles of cash in New York, decided one day to just walk away from her job and become an artist. Her successful crossover led her to motivational speaking. She'd go to high schools and ask the kids who they thought was the most successful, the doctor, the lawyer, or the poet. The children naturally would attach a dollar amount to the question and choose the doctor or the lawyer. But the writer argued that success was measured not by the amounts of money, but by happiness and the ability to do what one loves every day. In her example, if all 3 were doing the thing they loved, all 3 were successful, regardless of who was eating at a table in the fancy restaurant and who was eating from the dumpsters out back. As a dreamer and someone who firmly holds that everything must happen for a reason, I believe all experiences we have in a day are successes, even negative ones, for they shape us and determine our next step. As a child, when I would fail at something, my father would always ask, "Did you learn anything?" We are shaped by all of these successes, regardless of whether we arrive at the change machine and are given more money than we had hoped for, or the bag filled with coins splits open and all the coins fall down the drain. In the end, the success is in getting more money or learning to use a stronger bag next time. What then is failure? I'm reminded of another quote that goes something like, "God never gives you more than you can handle, unless you die at something." Success is getting out of bed this morning and finding moments in life that will give us the strength to get out of bed tomorrow morning. Success isn't always tangible and can't be quantified. Instead, it's like matter, existing all around us. When there is no more success to be had, we stop getting up. I believe failure is that moment when our successes become too few and inconsequential that we, as Pickford suggests, stop getting up. Failure is, quite frankly, death. How death greets us can be at our own hands, at the hands of another, or most likely by the hands of time, nature, or for some, a higher power giving us more than we can handle. Failure does not exist outside of death, therefore we can't be shaped by it. It is our successes, our every experience, and our reaction to those experiences that determine who we are and how we interact with others and the world around us. Our successes determine if we get back up. Failure is never getting up again.
Thank you, Rudy. Now we're going to move into questions. So as a reminder, you'll each get a question. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and then 1 minute rebuttal. So Mark, since you won the coin toss, your question comes first. How did you work your way back from the earlier lean years to a successful teaching and coaching career? And what did you learn that motivated you to keep striving for success?
Well, I was brought up with the idea that you win. You always win. You never lose, and do whatever you have to do in order to win. My father at a very young age put me in. We weren't asked if we wanted to play baseball, basketball, or football. We played baseball, basketball, and football because that's what my dad wanted. And because of that, I learned competition, I think, more than anything else, and I learned to be on a team. I knew what that was like, and I knew that the objective of it was winning. It was success. It was never failure. I don't believe that anyone, and I can talk to the audience, any of you have, almost everyone has a career. You probably do something that you like in your career. And none of you go to work on a daily basis thinking that I am going to do something wrong today, I'm going to fail today. You go there because you want to be successful. And success is the answer to it. You pursue success. You do not pursue failure. So it is only natural that success will shape your life much more than failure. I think of a hairstylist. When a hairstylist goes to work, she does not want to give a bad haircut. A lawyer doesn't walk into a courtroom and think, oh, I think I'll lose today. And a surgeon doesn't go into an operation room thinking, oh, am I working on the right arm here? And I can go on with this. And even salespersons. If you're a salesperson, you hear, in some cases, you hear 99 no's to 1 yes. And it is the yes that brings you success. And that 1 yes makes your day, that 1 yes makes your pay. And because of that, you continue to do it. The no's meant nothing after that 1 yes, but they meant nothing. The yes is what counted. It is the success that counts, not the failure.
Thank you, Iman. Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, it's difficult to rebut because we're arguing the same side. I will just add that what Betsy said earlier, no person is a village, no child is raised, no person is, all children are raised by a village. That's the most inelegant thing I've ever said. But the point of that is, you get through times with the help of others. You don't do it alone. My family, my friends, the people around you are how you survive. And as I said, and as I agree with Mark, no one tries to fail. And for me, I don't see failure as failing. I see it as tripping. No one tries to trip. You just do. So you can either turn around and look at the thing that didn't make you trip and feel stupid, or you can just keep walking and pretend you were going to start running.
Thank you. Okay, so Rudy, your question. You talk about failure theoretically and about bad times of your own, but then in the last paragraph, you say the only failure is death. Did you mean that literally or figuratively, as in the death of dreams, ideas, and aspirations?
I actually meant that literally. Organs fail. That is the truth. Organs fail. Death is failure. After death, you aren't going to get up and go into surgery or cut hair. You're done. And up to that point, everything you do is a success or not. I think the hard part is using failure as a noun. And it's such a hard thing to put on yourself because you're already going through, everyone is going through so much all the time, and we're all in our own insular, we have so many problems, and we try to help our friends and try to take care of ourselves, or maybe not take care of ourselves because we're taking care of other people. But in the end, we keep going, and I literally think, I think the death of a dream is certainly a horrible thing, and there is a point at which people do give up on dreams, and I think, to use as an example, the rise in suicides in the United States, 25%, it's gone up since '99, I think, and that perhaps, I'm not an expert there, but that perhaps is the death of dreams, the start of the death of dreams. I think it takes a lot to get to the point, and perhaps the accumulation of the death of dreams, which leads into something worse, would be the only exception to it, to my example, but I meant literally. That's the only time you're a failure, or that you failed, or not a failure.
Thank you. And Mark, your response?
I got the internet screwed up all the way.
Okay.
But I didn't hear the question.
Yes, I will repeat the question, of course. I was asking Rudy about, he has stated that the only failure is death. And I asked if he meant that literally or figuratively, as in death of dreams, ideas, and aspirations.
Yeah, you know, that same question came up to, I noticed that also in his essay. I thought that was a daring question, very daring. I give it to you, and I'll tell you what comes to mind when I think of that, and that you only experience failure when you die. And right away it came to my mind when Jesus was on the cross. The man next to him was a thief, and Jesus said to him, "Believe in me, in this day you will be in paradise." And so I think of heaven as a type of paradise, and so death is not moving to failure; it's moving to a greater good and a much greater place. So I had trouble with that. I have a little bit of trouble with that.
Give a round of applause for that. Now we're going to go back to you, Mark. Are there individuals for whom no amount of hard work will bring success because of society's inequalities?
That's a good question. As you can see, I'm stumped. But anyway, yeah, no. Perhaps. I do think that, well, we have the highest rate of prisoners in this country. So, and I'm not sure that you could call prisoners successful. But, and I don't want to get strayed from the subject of which shapes your life, which plays a greater role in shaping your life, because even prisoners have a want for success to some degree. In fact, some of them talk about their successes. They robbed the biggest bank, and so on. And I could go on with some silly things, but they think of success. And of course, if you've seen the movie The Great Escape, you know what I'm talking about. These people are escaping, and of course, there's something that they strive for is still success. So even if we go down the line here and talk about prisoners, they still have an idea of what success is, and they would rather have success than failure, because it is the nature of man is to pursue success, and it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how low on the scale of failure you are. You still have the desire for success, to some degree at least. And in fact, probably to a much greater degree than you have for failure. In fact, I'm sure a much greater degree than failure. And so even if you take the lowest of the lowest, they still would prefer success. True, if you're talking about prisoners, you can probably say that failure probably shapes their life more than others. That's one point 6% of our population. So if we're just talking about that population, but otherwise, success is still the ultimate goal, not failure.
Thank you, Mark. And your response, Rudy?
Would you mind reading that question again?
Absolutely. Are there individuals for whom no amount of hard work will bring success because of society's inequalities?
I think that there are individuals who have to certainly work harder and are at a greater disadvantage. That individuals who are at a greater disadvantage, and unfortunately, that puts them in a position, depending on socioeconomic status and where they were born and raised, what part of the world, urban settings versus rural settings. I think those of us in rural settings have a completely different idea of, I grew up where you didn't have to lock your doors or your cars, and the kids went out and played. Our parents shoot us out of the house immediately because they didn't want us in the house, and they knew we'd be back. But I think certainly in areas of where there is a lot of violence and less opportunities, financial and educational, I think it's harder. I think it's really hard, but I think it's still possible. I just think it's harder.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The last question, we start with Rudy. You say that all experiences are successes, even the negative ones. How do you square that assertion with the tragedy of dislocated, marginalized persons around the world?
I think for me, and what I wrote, I guess what you have control over. I realize that sometimes for example, in another country, you're born into slavery, or your opportunities are less, where women have no rights and are not allowed to drive, or to leave the house, or to vote, or to have a voice, and are abused at young ages. I don't think you could quantify them in terms of success or failure. I don't think that that's what we're arguing here. I hope it's not what we're arguing here. I can only speak for the experiences I've had and the experiences of people I know have had, or that I've read about have had, and how that has shaped me. I think they're a separate discussion from this. I certainly don't see any of them as failures or successes. If they get away, they're successful in getting away, but I don't know, that's an entirely different set of people than I was speaking about.
Thank you. And Mark, your response? Do you mean to read the question again? Yes. This was referring to Rudy saying that all experiences are successes, even the negative ones. So how do you square that assertion with the tragedy of dislocated persons around the world?
Yeah, I'm not sure that is an answerable question. and I'm not sure that when you're talking about the negative, and we're putting it on a worldwide scale, then there's extremes. There are deep extremes. There are people that are simply trying to survive right now, and I don't know that we could argue success or failure with people that are simply trying to live. It's probably not a good argument.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Okay, now you each have 1 minute for a closing statement. So we'll do this without applause. We'll go Mark first and then Rudy, 1 minute, and your closing statements for the audience who will then vote.
Hey, I saw a video on YouTube last week, and it was probably some of you saw it as well on Facebook. It was a Michael Jordan video, and Michael Jordan was saying, and believe it or not, the topic was success and failure. And Michael Jordan said, "I missed over 9,000 shots in my career. I lost over 300 games in my career. And I missed 29 29 last-second shots in my career to win a game. And then you think to yourself, well, here's probably one of the most famous basketball players that ever lived. And the point to this is, we see Michael Jordan as success. We don't see him as a failure, not even close. And the reason for that is because he didn't dwell on the negative, he dwelled on the positive, he dwelled on success, not failure. And success is what shaped his life, not failure.
Thank you, Mark. Rudy, 1 minute for final comments.
When I was trying to think of the distinction between my argument and Mark's, I realized that the thing that I was after was hope. I think the reason I don't believe that failure exists is because, like all of you, we need hope. We need to believe that we're going to make it to the next thing, and that if death does come, that we're able to get through it if we are the ones left to mourn. And I certainly hope that there is a heaven. That is not death. I meant as organs failing, and that's failure. I hope there is a heaven, and I hope I get to go there. But I think that our distinction is that too much energy and time is wasted on feeling like a failure, or calling yourself a failure, and that it isn't a word we should have or use in that context. We are all successes, and we are measured, unfortunately, by things we do right and wrong, and we are our own worst critics, and we beat ourselves up enough. So I think in the end, failure isn't a thing. We make mistakes. We're human, and I think at the end, we all should have hope.
Okay, thank you both. Audience, this is a tough call. You recall our ballots are in front of our program. It's now your turn to use the ballots on the first page to cast your vote for who made the strongest argument for success shaping one's life. And also, please remember to submit any questions you would like to propose for the final round. The Boy Scouts here are going to come around and collect your votes. Let's give one more round of applause to Mark and Rudy as they exit the stage. Okay, while the votes are being collected, we're going to do a quick in-your-seat energizer to make sure you enter round 2 with the same focus and enthusiasm as you entered round 1. So as you're sitting in your seat, take a moment just to wiggle your toes in your shoes, feel your toes, wiggle your ankles, wiggle your knees in your seat. It's going to feel good, I promise. Wiggle your torso. See those torsos going? Oh yeah, there we go. We got some dancing. Move those arms around a little bit. Yeah? Maybe give a nice big stretch up. Oh, big yawns I see. Amazing. Great. Okay, you can bring your body back to neutral. And we are going to, as the votes are being collected, we're going to welcome our next 2 contestants moving on to round 2. 2 debaters that we have for round 2, arguing that failure plays a larger role in shaping one's life. We have Anthony Berryhill and Tanya Abadi, who will be joining us on stage here now. Let's give them a very warm round of applause. So, Anthony, you are from New Orleans.
Yes,
Did I say that right this time?
you did.
Okay. And you now live in Austin. What are some of the major differences you've noticed between New Orleans and Austin?
Oh goodness, that's a hard question. The first question. I think one thing I noticed is just how diverse Austin is in so many different ways. Not just in terms of the standard categories of race, class, or gender, but they say in Austin, keep Austin weird, and they really mean it. Whereas in New Orleans, in many cases, you stay where you live. A lot of people just stay there, and Austin is so mobile, and we have so many people coming in that it always changes. You'll see a lot of T-shirts in Austin that will say, "Thank you for coming, please leave," because we keep getting 150 people a net every day because it's such a unique and odd place.
Cool, thank you for that description of Austin, I liked it. And then Tanya, you're originally from Baltimore, is that right?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
then you now live in Nashville.
Yes.
So Nashville, of course, is known for its music. What is below the surface there? Like, what else is Nashville known for, having been a resident there, besides the music? What do you really love about it?
What I really love about Nashville is its soul. Mark mentioned that Minnesota is one of the states that has the nicest people. And I'm going to argue that Nashville could probably contend with, Tennessee could contend with any city in Minnesota. The people are super friendly, a warm community, everyone knows each other and tries to get to know you and enjoy the city together. But like Austin, there are about 100 people moving to Nashville every single day, and I need that t-shirt that says, "Go home." Although I'm a transplant myself, though, you know.
Maybe you could invite them to move to New York Mills.
Maybe that's an option. I think my daughter would love it here, especially that train at the whistle stop.
Want more people? No. Okay, all right. So for round 2, we're going to go through the exact same process as round 1. We'll hear the essays, we'll do the questions and rebuttals, and then we'll have final comments. So earlier today, a coin toss determined that Anthony will read his essay first and take the first debate question. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. Cool. So before starting, I'd like to thank everyone here. It's been a great experience. Everyone's been so sweet, super sweet, and super nice. And sure. How does this work? I think I'll miss New York Mills when I leave tomorrow, and I'd like to thank you all for being great hosts for me. If I had never failed at things I once wanted to achieve, I know I would be the most unhappy person in the world. I've been a personal failure many times. Harvard has rejected me 3 different times for college admission. McKinsey put the rejected stamp on my application when I applied for a job. And the number of failures that get me a date is nearing the thousands. But in all of those cases, failure truly tested my desire for what I thought I wanted out of life. I applied to Harvard because my dad told me that it has the best brand name. I blindly filled out the college application form with little thought about the culture, curriculum, student life, and most of all, the weather. I applied to McKinsey because I was told in graduate school that it was the best place to work. But I didn't factor in the long hours, the drain of travel, or if I'd actually enjoyed doing Excel 70 to 100 hours a week. And finally, I can't count on the number of times I've asked a woman out on a date strictly based on her looks, or my guy friends' peer pressure. In retrospect, the failure of starting a date has saved me a lot of heartache, drama, and mutual dissatisfaction. The larger point is not about my personal and professional tastes, but instead to emphasize how failure sharpens our decision-making and emotional swords. It is easy to go for things and pray for success based on peer pressure and groupthink. As a teacher of high school debaters, I see this year in, year out. Students are told what to value, love, and strive for by their peers and their parents. But when I ask them why they want these things, the common answer is some version of, because I want to be the best. Everyone else says they need to do it, but little true desire. Failure provides a sobering and immediate correcting force, but it does not only correct for shallow and superficial thinking about what we want or how we define success. Assuming that one's goals and intentions are pure, failure guides us through the maze towards succeeding. Edison famously viewed his thousands of failures in creating a functional light bulb as part of his education. Einstein was able to reject and failure in school because he was an out-of-the-box thinker. And finally, if you look at the backgrounds of any of the sharks on Shark Tank, their roads to multi-millions were no picnic either. But in all of these and other examples, failure, when viewed with the proper perspective, shapes one's life by building character and steering one toward more fruitful and important directions. Success is dangerous. It can create an illusion of invincibility. Crises can occur when success is knocking at your door because you don't know or you are already blissfully unaware that a big problem is brewing. I've seen firsthand how success can lure the senior management of a company that everything is well and there are no problems until something big hits. Governments are especially vulnerable. As a Katrina survivor, I saw the pictures of my previous family home after it got hit with about 20 feet of water. I still think about my city and the neighbors who spent decades riding out storms and successfully doing so. Many, unfortunately, didn't live to survive the correction to their hubris. Success enables one to ignore the possibility of failure or catastrophe. It inspires ideas like momentum and inevitability in sports and professional competition. Groupthink then kicks into overdrive, shutting out any naysayers who warn that the successful may have metaphorically have no clothes on. Just ask the 72-win Golden State Warriors and all of those sports journalists who said it was impossible for the team to lose. Failure shapes life on both ends. It gives us feedback on the decisions we make, and if we let it, it can warn us before we completely go off course. In my own life, failure and rejection saved me from the bitter cold of Cambridge, 100-hour work weeks, and hundreds of miserable dates. Thank God for failure.
Thank you, Anthony. Tanya.
Good evening, New York Mills. I've ran out of compliments. I've had 3 in a row, so I'm just gonna go with the 2 previous before. You guys are beautiful, and you know what? A new one. You're making me less nervous than I already am right now. So thank you for having me to New York Mills. This is my first time in Minnesota, and also my first time in a rural setting. And I was a bit nervous before coming, but I am so happy to be here, and the experience has just been life-changing thus far. So there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. Colin Powell. As clear as the midday sky, the first time that I experienced failure is a vivid photograph perched upon the back corner of my earliest childhood memories. At 6 years old, failure wasn't a feeling or a topic that I had already explicitly encountered, yet it suddenly landed on my shoulder during the first round of the State Dramatic Reading Championship. Conquering the rounds locally, I was surely a shoo-in to take the state title. After many weeks of diligently preparing a short dramatic reading of Shel Silverstein's Listen to the Mussets, the words were so fitting that I really believed that anything could be. The odds were already stacked against me before I took the stage. The lone representative from a school district that wasn't on anyone's radar, the lone person of color, the lone contestant whose parents couldn't afford a fancy competition dress or sparkly new shoes, the lone contestant who read in a distinct Baltimore vernacular. Somehow, though, I was confident in my ability to beat those odds. The performance was powerful. It was my best one to date. I read with passion, clarity, and a particular emphasis on the last line of the poem. Anything can be. I believed it. However, when the judge announced the winner, when the judge announced the first place winner, I was shocked. I stood there and I had a 2-minute pause until the first place winner was announced. All of which the time was spent with my voices in my head, arguing the competition's outcome. So when the winner was announced, I intentionally blocked the sound, and I saw an ecstatic girl sprinting towards the podium to claim the championship trophy. In that moment, I felt a single tear run down my face. As the eliminated contestants exited the stage, one of the judges whispered something to those who had not been named winners. Remember, failure is simply success turned inside out. I expect to see you all next year. Suddenly, those tears transformed into hope. Did I win the state title? No. Did this mean that I was a horrible reader? No. Was I going to try again? Well, yes, absolutely. This was a tough lesson to learn so early, but a necessary one. The next year, I practiced harder, returned to the state championship, and received second place. The next year, I practiced even harder, and then I danced to the winner's circle to pick up my first place trophy. Failure had created an insatiable desire to do better. In the 30 years post learning the first memorable lesson, failure has since shown up to my doorstep more times than I can count. Both microscopic missteps and colossal failures that have cost employment, savings, residencies, and security. There were many times when failure, especially the extensive ones, made me uncomfortable. At times, failure's villainous stare discouraged me from believing that I was even capable of success. Our society glorifies success, which doesn't allow us to see others' failures, even if they are the catalyst behind our winning. All of these factors can make one believe that failure can only negatively shape your life. However, reality is that failure is a vital stepping stone to success. And despite popular belief, it does not have to be painful. Just ask anyone who is considered a success. Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, Les Brown, Albert Einstein, the accomplished ballet dancer, or the tenured grade school teacher next door. All of their success stories likely include pasts that were sprinkled with failure. And there are great lessons that come from failure, lessons that strengthen and develop our character. When I poured my life savings into a business that failed, I may have lost the LLC, but I gained valuable experience about how to be an entrepreneur. When I moved hundreds of miles away to pursue a job that eventually laid me off, instead of focusing on being let go, I appreciated the beauty of navigating places outside of my comfort zone. When doctors warned me that obesity and hypothyroidism was causing infertility, I became resilient and relentless in my pursuit of natural healing and fertility. This time, the perceived failure resulted in a beautiful baby girl who's sitting in the audience right there. Failure humbles the spirit in unimaginable ways, allowing humans to find strength, to persist, and to conquer. While life's road of success is still unfolding for me, I am reminded by that great lesson I learned 3 decades ago. Each failure is a lesson. It's not a punishment. It is success turned inside out, and my life is infinitely better because of it.
Now we'll begin with the questions, starting with Anthony. You said in your essay, assuming one's goals and intentions are pure, failure guides us through the maze to success. What are the indicators that this works?
So I think part of that question is about what does it mean to define what success is and what are our goals, right? So part of the problem with thinking about success is that we often assume that what we've identified as success is correct. And as you say in the essay, very often that's wrong, right? So how do I know that failure is guiding me toward that right answer? Part of it's recognizing that failure is feedback. Anyone who's been a teacher knows this. You give a student an F on a math exam, that's feedback. Hey, what you think is really important to you, like doing well in this class, you're not demonstrating that on this test. Another part of just generally thinking about what really drives people. For example, think about, if you've heard about sommeliers, right, wine experts, there's a reason that they go for the hardest test that was featured in the movie Song. The reason is because there's a 96% failure rate. So how do we know that failure is actually driving toward that course? And we know that because He's giving us feedback. What happens with success often is that people assume that because they're doing really well, in the short term, they're in a good shape. But think about whenever you've been laid off. You weren't given any warning that you were getting negative feedback. You weren't told what was going on. And that, to me, is the ultimate way of being driven off course.
Thank you. And Tanya, your response to that?
Yes, can you repeat the question?
Of course. Assuming one's goals and intentions are pure, failure guides us through the maze to success, is what Anthony had said. What are the indicators that this work?
Failure guides us through the maze to success because, like Anthony said, failure is feedback. Failure is an opportunity to learn from your mistakes. It's a great teacher. And having been an educator myself and having learned from a lot of great teachers, I know that teaching can help to shape your mind and shape your heart. And as failure is a teacher, each lesson or each failure that you encounter, it shapes who you are, it shapes your character, it shapes your mind, and it shapes your heart. And so if you encounter failure along your pathway to success, we have to look at failure as not a negative term, but we have to change the connotation and learn to start addressing failure as something positive, as a lesson, as something that we can take and walk away from to make our lives better. And so I agree with Anthony, and also I believe that failure is a vital stepping stone to success.
Second question, starting with Tanya. What makes you believe that failure-humbled humans are shaped by failure to respond to success?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What makes you believe that failure-humbled humans are shaped by failure to respond to success?
There's a saying that when you're at the bottom or when you've hit rock bottom, there's really no place else to look but up. You've experienced failure in your life, whether it's tiny or whether it's a huge failure. And you have to learn from that failure. The failure in itself humbles you and makes you aware that there's a possibility to even fail in the first place. And granted, some of us are likely to go through life and enjoy many successes. But there are some of us who really are hit by failure really hard. And there's a dark cloud over your spirit and over your heart when you're hit with that failure. And in order to be humbled by that, your spirit and your character must bounce back. You must look up and you must learn from the failure that you've experienced.
Thank you. And Anthony?
When I think about this question and the difficulty of this question, it's that we don't recognize two important words here, freedom and responsibility. And I agree with Tanya, that when we're in that moment of failure, it forces us to take responsibility for how we contributed to that failure, to also how we interpret that failure. Do we say that I'm a failure, or do we say that I am failing? And it's in recognizing that distinction that we really find out who we are as human beings, and that we really have the opportunity to either sink ourselves in thinking that I'm a failure because I didn't get what I want, or I'm an amazing person because I was able to endure the situation and find my own path to freedom.
Anthony, this is back at you. Is there an important difference between making mistakes, which is something that we all do, and failure? Please respond and elaborate.
Yes. So at my job, one of my bosses said the following: it's okay to make mistakes, just don't make them twice. So obviously there are big consequences to failing at anything we do. The key question, kind of feeds my last answer, is how do we interpret that, and do I choose to do something different? I think in the first debate, there was an interpretation of failure that assumed one possible answer, which is, I don't get up, I don't try anymore. And I think that is actually the true failure, is having that interpretation. Is thinking that that if you're on this debate stage and we don't win, that suddenly this experience hasn't had any value at all. I would argue there's a reason that we have one America's Greatest Thinker and not 4 of them. Because the very value of that success comes from the fact that 3 of the 4 of us are not going to have the opportunity to have that title. It's the same thing in sports. In NCAA's, it's a tournament of 64. If we think of success as the only thing that matters, there are 63 losing teams. And I don't think any team that's been to the big dance would agree with that interpretation.
And Tanya, your response?
Very well said, Anthony. We're just going here. I do believe that there is a difference between making mistakes and failure, and it is all in what you perceive to be an actual failure versus a mistake. And I think that if we look at the word failure and look at, it's very complex. It has a lot of layers. And a mistake, on the other hand, is something that, a misstep, or something that can be corrected. And a failure, if we look at the layers within failure, we know that failures can be corrected. We can fix failures as well. But failures tend to put us in a dark place versus a simple mistake. We kind of make mistakes and we keep on moving. But a failure is something that gets us down. And I think that in distinguishing the 2 words, we need to understand that they're both connected to each other, that they both play a vital role in learning how to navigate both mistakes and both failures. So I think that what Anthony said, I would echo what he said and agree with his emphasis on the difference between mistakes and failures. But I also want you to know that they're both the same, and that that's it.
Nice and heated up here. We're going to keep going. Tanya, this is the last question.
Another question?
Is life all about winning and not to win is failure? Or are there other models for a good life?
Life is not all about winning. I'll be very quick to respond to that. I just personally, my own personal story, I come from a family that has been overshadowed by failure. A mom with a 4th grade education, a dad who consistently tried to make his way in the business world and failed. And as a result, a lot of my siblings and people in my family, they think that failure is the only way, the only road that they have. And so I want everyone to know that what I discovered along my path, and thanks to failure being such a huge part of my life, I realized that failure and winning is different in everyone's mind. And winning is not success. Everyone has a different definition of winning. Winning for me is waking up every day, seeing my husband, seeing my beautiful daughter, breathing the air that I breathe, getting to talk to people, and just falling in love with conversation and learning about people. That's what winning is to me. And that doesn't mean that that comes without failure, because in life, failure is going to happen. Failure is going to happen, but my definition of what's on the other side of those failures has kept me going. It has kept me focused and learning lessons from each of those failures.
Thank you. Anthony, your response?
Yeah, I have the philosophy that losing is a great thing. That sounds weird, right? But when we think about the relationships we have, they're all going to end someday. If you go to a debate tournament, every person but one person will lose. But why do we do these kinds of things? We do them because we want to become the person who's worthy of the goal that we're trying to achieve. And in that goal, I'm going to disagree with the first debate. There's a lot of death. There's a death of the dream you may have had. There's a death of the person you thought you were when you recognize you're a new and different person. The military understands this when they do boot camps. The reason they torture people is because they want people to face the death of who they were and the death of their ego. And it's only in that moment that they're able to live the good life that they never thought was possible earlier.
have your 1 minute closing statement. Starting with Anthony. You keep getting the number one from the coin tosser up here.
Yeah, right? When I was a debater, I'd never want a coin toss.
Success.
Yes. I went to a grade, middle, and high school that literally saved my life. It's during Union School. And they gave me a lot of experiences. And I think the way I want to conclude this part of my experience here is to think about a class I took in ceramics. When you make pottery at a pottery wheel, the goal of the success is the pot that you have at the end. But what happens when you use too much water on a pottery wheel? It falls totally apart. But it's those failures, the screw-ups, that quite literally shape what you get in the end. We often think success is the most important thing. The only reason we think that is because we fail to remember the shaping that occurs. And I think all our lives are like a pot of clay on a pottery wheel. We think the only thing that matters is the end, but what really matters is the process that gets us to that conclusion.
Thank you, Tanya. Your 1 minute closing statement, please.
Yes, thank you, Anthony, for so eloquently articulating your points. You described how, through your personal experiences and providing great examples of how failure is an integral part of success. And I'd like to expand upon your ideas, if I'm able to in the next round. I would like to show and prove that failure is responsible for shaping our lives by giving examples from all of the Think Off contestants today. You see, I was talking earlier and reading the bios, and Mark, an advocate for success, he had been following the Think Off since 2007, and he had been applying to the Think Off and submitting questions every year since 2007. And this year is the year that he got into the Think Off. So he failed, he was rejected, and he still persevered and made it here today. Anthony, you were rejected from Harvard 3 times, but in that moment, you became fearless in your pursuit of an Ivy League education. And brother, Yale and Stanford are not bad. And finally, Rudy, when I read your essay, you talked about how you were struggling financially, and I really thought about myself and putting myself in that position, and I thought, I'm reading about myself, because there were times when I only had $12 in my account and was able to buy a loaf of bread and some water for myself. And so I saw myself in your essay too. And one of the ideas that we didn't really talk about is how failure causes us to be empathetic and causes us to be able to understand other people's failures and be able to connect with them and make sure that we help others throughout their failures as well.
Thank you. Holy cow. So it's going to be your turn to vote for who made the strongest argument. Let's have one more round of applause for round 2 contestants, Tanya and Anthony. Please remember to submit any questions you'd like to propose for the final round from either the the success debate or the failure debate. Once you have cast your votes, we are going to take a brief intermission while the judges tally the votes and review your submitted questions for the final round. We are going to reconvene in 15 minutes. That's at 8:45. We are going to reconvene at 8:45. We started 10 minutes late, so we're about 10 minutes behind schedule. So in this time for the intermission, stretch your legs, shake out your bodies, meet a new neighbor, and we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Thank you all. back, everyone. Raise your hand if you talked to someone you didn't know during the break. Oh yeah, all right. This civil discourse is breaking all of us Minnesotans out of our shell. Really love that. Okay, so are you ready to hear who won the first 2 rounds? Yeah, let's just do one more round of applause for an amazing first half. We also got some incredible questions submitted that you'll hear later as well. So here we go. Arguing on the side of success. Please give a round of applause to our winner, Mark Land. You can make your way up to the stage. And arguing on the side of failure, please give a round of applause to our winner, Anthony Berryhill. Okay, we're going to do a real-time coin toss once we get our contestants up here, our debaters up here, to see which will go first. Success or failure, Anthony or Mark? While we're waiting, anybody who raised their hand earlier that said that they had already made up their mind? Anybody have their mind changed yet? Well, we'll see what happens in this round. Ooh, we've got a couple. What's that? Another round of applause for our winners. Here they come. Awesome. So I believe both of you won the coin toss earlier, right? You won? You did. Okay, got it. So I'm going to have you call it in the air. It's tails. Failure. All right, so we are going to start with the question of success. So this round, we're going to have 4 questions for each side. So each contestant is going to get a question. Their opponent is going to have a chance to have a rebuttal. And we have 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then at the end you will each get a question in which there will be no rebuttal. And then you will also have 2 minutes for final comments. Okay, so success is going to start. Mark, failure can be brutal, ugly, and unpleasant, and tends to be more public than success. Therefore, isn't failure to be avoided at all costs? And if it is avoided, what fills in the gap to cause a person to persist and succeed?
I think everyone experiences failure. I don't question that. And I don't question the fact that failure leads to success even. But it is not failure. Let's go back to I'll go back to the very first illustration that I gave. You fall off the horse, you get back on the horse. Now, you do that enough and you become a proficient rider. Sure, the first time you rode the horse, he bumped you. The second time you rode the horse, you forgot to hold his head up and he went forward and you broke your arm. The third time you rode the horse, you held the reins too tight and you went backwards instead of forward. The point is that even though that you have these horrific failures, it will be the success of riding that horse that will shape that person's life. He may become a rodeo rider for all I know, but the point is that it wasn't the failure he forgot his failures. He forgot all of those failures. Success is what counted. Success is what made him, and not the failures.
Thank you. Your rebuttal.
Sure. The question said that failure can be public, nasty, brutal. I argue that's the point. The reason that success has any value is because it's so nasty to fail. Think about sports. those kind of movies that make us cry, like the American Ice Hockey Team, the reason success has value is because we imagine the underdog and what they go under. If there was no nastiness or brutality to failure, then we would never play the game at all. You know what they call a game that's too easy to succeed? They call it broken.
Great. So we're going to go right back at you. Doesn't the fact that many people get stymied by failure rather than stimulated by it prove it's not such a good motivator?
No.
Please elaborate.
Sure. So it can be a great motivator, but as I said earlier, there's a part of responsibility, right? That part of the job, if you're mentoring someone or you're that person themselves, is to figure out how to interpret that failure. So I would argue there are many people who fall and never get up, and there are two responses. The first, sometimes you should not get up. If you're a fighter and you're about to die because you're against someone who's much better than you, stay down. The worst thing is overconfidence. The second thing is that failure can be a great motivator because it forces you to reinterpret what you've done. When we think of success, we think that we have a path and that's the only answer. But many times we're going in the wrong direction. When we have success, it can be the siren's call that we don't listen to, and at the end of that siren's call, it's total disaster.
Thank you. Your response? Doesn't the fact that many people get stymied by failure rather than stimulated by it prove that it's not such a good motivator?
Well, definitely. I think you have to remember too that not all people are probably should have to remember that some people are naturally successful. And I can give you many examples of that. Mozart, probably a wonderful example. Here's a person that wrote he created an opera by the age of 8. And so, and never made a mistake. He never even corrected his music. It was perfect from the very beginning. And so there's the same with failure. And sometimes failure is not a good motivator. Failure is a poor motivator. In fact, what we do is, well, I'll give you probably a good example with me. I did terrible in math, especially Algebra 2 even. And I gave up math. And so it's not a motivator, but you know what? I didn't shape my life because I failed math. So, yeah. And I think that happens with a lot of people. Again, back to your careers, you chose a career that you did well at, not that you did poorly at.
Thank you, Mark. This is going to come right back at you. The argument can be made that the only reason failure is the greatest motivating force in life is that people still retain a starry-eyed belief in the possibility of success despite the evidence to the contrary. Wouldn't the demoralization caused by the belief that it is impossible nowadays to achieve lofty dreams and goals cause a person to just give in to the status quo and accept that failure plays a larger role? Why or why not?
I think that's why even Tanya said that she had lost, as an entrepreneur, lost her job and lost a business. And I think that if you losing that enough times, failure will make a difference in the way you respond to success or the way you pursue success. And I think that's the key word there too, is to pursue success. And I think that what happens is in some cases people stop feeling pursuit of success and therefore they fail. And I do think, however, that even if they fail, that at some point they will realize that they can do something to create some type of success, and they will pursue that. I think it's the nature of man to pursue success, not to fail. You know, nobody out there wants to fail. No one. And I think that just because of that nature of man, that you will continue to pursue, even if you are a failure right now. That doesn't mean you'll be a failure by next year.
Rebuttal?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The argument can be made that the only reason failure is the greatest motivating force in life is that people still retain a starry-eyed belief in the possibility of success despite the evidence to the contrary. Wouldn't the demoralization caused by the belief that it is impossible nowadays to achieve lofty dreams and goals cause a person to just give in to the status quo and accept that failure plays the larger role? Why or why not?
I flip the question a bit. I think what makes people give into the status quo is actually success. Is the belief that no matter what they do, it's inevitable that they'll succeed. I think about our most recent election, where the person who lost was literally planning their celebration party. they were planning who would have their committee, but didn't really focus on areas of the United States where they lost. This is kind of the lesson I teach my debaters. It's always assume and pay attention to the places you can lose, because that's where you ultimately lose. It's assuming that there's this utopia where you're going to get whatever you want no matter what. And I think it's recognizing our vulnerability, recognizing where we may be making mistakes that can allow us to challenge the status quo. People who feel comfortable don't challenge the status quo. Why? Because they're so afraid to lose. And I argue embracing losing is what allows us to take risk, to be vulnerable, and be pioneers.
Thank you. This is a question that comes from the audience, and it's going to come right back at you.
Sure.
What would you say to someone who has given up hope because of perceived failures overriding success in their lives?
Do they know me? There are many times in my own life where I was that person. Even at my current job, being denied a promotion. And not just being denied a promotion, but being told that you are failing and you may not be here very long. So what do you do in that moment? And I think what I would tell that person is what I've told anyone I've worked with or mentored, which is, number one, use this as a moment to test if the thing you want is really that thing. And two, recognize that there is a celebration in that failure. There's a celebration in that moment. Because if you succeed eventually, it's remembering that history that gives our success value. I think about people who've had privileged lives their whole time. So in my essay, I'm talking about a lack of dating or getting into Harvard, who have all of those things, but they feel suicidal. They feel worthless. Why? Because they didn't have the realization of their own abilities. They didn't have the resistance that failure gives them. Think about celebrities. Celebrities who kill themselves. Celebrities who just go completely under ruin, and they're like, I only had one hit. And I'm here thinking, give me one hit. I want to be one hit wonder. They don't recognize their own successes because it came too easily.
Same question. What would you say to someone who has given up hope because of perceived failures overriding success in their lives?
You know, I was a coach for 30 years, and of course every person on your team is not successful, and some of them feel very as failures. It can happen. I've coached basketball and track and field mostly, and it's true that people become obsessed with not winning, with not becoming what they wanted to be, whether it was weightlifting or running or basketball or volleyball or softball, and my answer for that is that keep striving for success and it'll come to you, but you have to pursue it. And by nature, most of those people did exactly that. I had one girl on the basketball team, for example, who was absolutely horrible, and she went to summer camps at ODU, and by the third year I had that girl, she was my center. She was the best person on the team. And she did that because she searched success, and then she got over her failures, even though she thought she was a failure at that time. And again, it comes right back down to success is the pursuit. It is not failure.
Thank you, Mark. Again, your question. The common belief is that if you fail, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But what if a person doesn't have the things commonly thought of as bootstraps? That is, familial support, education, or even the traits that typically help a person to excel, such as ambition and perseverance. Ultimate success may well play a larger role in their life, but are there alternatives to bootstraps, or is that person doomed to failure?
Not at all. And in fact, that comes back to the story of fall off the horse, get back on it. I keep coming back to that story, but it's so true. And in fact, every aspect of life we will fail. We will have failures. That's just understood. But it's overcoming those, and you continue that, and you do pull yourself up by the bootstraps. I was talking to someone just a few minutes ago who was talking about his child learning how to walk. Now, I promise you that child will probably fall 100 times before he walks 10 steps. But the point is he will pull himself up by the bootstraps and walk one day. And that's something that we do. We do that by nature. We pursue success by nature.
Roberto?
Yeah, I agree that we pursue success by nature, but I disagree that makes it the thing that shapes our lives. I think about people from my own neighborhood, New Orleans, who often think that they are ultimate failures, that they'll never succeed because they don't have any boots to strap on. But when you think about the places that actually help these people, things like the KIPP School, the Breakthrough Collaborative, of which I'm myself a student of alumnus, what's the one thing they tell them? Responsibility. Yes, you may have a terrible family life. Yes, you may not have any food. And we've got to fix that. But that's no excuse for thinking that you are a failure inherently. That you have the opportunity to not just be good enough or have the merit of other people, but to be better. And this is something that undergraduate colleges recognize. Right? That when people talk about affirmative action, what they often miss is that colleges want students from these backgrounds because they prove that they're able to have resilience, they have grit, and the ability to show responsibility when it may seem impossible to do so.
Thank you. This is another question that a lot of audience members had similar questions to. So some believe that one must have failure in order to achieve success, and therefore failure plays the larger role in one's life. However, can failure ever be viewed as success?
Yes. Just ask Google a few years ago. So there's a story about how they had failure bars. Not kidding. And the reason for that is that if you want to have massive innovations, you want to really change the world, you have to create a space for vulnerability. You have to create a space for people to give up short-term success so that they're able to make the ideas and make the challenges that they would not feel safe otherwise. So in my essay, this is what I was talking about in terms of groupthink. Think about peer pressure. It stops everyone in many cases. But the people who change the world, the Elon Musks of the world, the Michael Jacksons of the world, I'll even argue LeBron James. I know, sometimes I say that way. The people who are willing to put themselves on the line in a public way and risk shame and risk condemnation are the ones who change our world. Einstein was called by his math professor a lazy dog, but he changed physics and our understanding of reality fundamentally. That would be impossible if we focus only on short-term success. I would argue that failure shapes our lives because even if we agree that success is the pursuit, the only way to achieve it in the long term is by recognizing how failure shapes us.
I'm going to go back to that success shapes your life more than failure. That is more likely to shape your life than failure. And I say that because, and I use the example of famous people, and I will go ahead and start with that. You can talk about Thomas Edison and Benjamin Franklin and the Wright brothers, and I'll tell you why you talk about those people, because they were famous people and they were successful people. If those people failed, which they did quite often, if all they did was fail, you would have never heard of those people. You would know who Benjamin Franklin was, Thomas Edison, or the Wright brothers. I live close to I live near Kitty Hawk, which is in North Carolina, where the Wright brothers took their first flight, so I've been to that memorial several times. And at the top of that memorial, there's a monument. And the monument marks the place where they made their first flight. And I will tell you something else. There's not one other monument in the entire memorial where they made their first failure. It's not in there. It's not in there. Only their success is what you remember. And only the success is what shaped their lives, not their failures. I guarantee you on that first flight that the Wright brothers made,
That's your time.
that all failures were gone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to come back to you. You both seem to agree that success and failure shape us. Failure teaches us. Success, or the hope for success, motivates us. But the topic asks which plays a larger role. Can you explain how your argument explicitly makes the case that success plays a larger role than failure?
I don't have any trouble with that at all because again, I'll go ahead and use my running experience. If my running experience was failure, I would simply stop running. I would have not run anymore. I mean, I would have picked up another sport. And it was not, and yes, again, I didn't win every meet, that's for sure, and I didn't even win the state meet. But the point is that it was the successes that brought me back to the starting line. It was not the failures, it was the successes. So it was the success of running that shaped my life, not the failure of losing a meet here or losing a meet there. It was the success that shaped my life, that made me a runner, that made me want to go on. It wasn't the failures, it was success that made me continue. It is success that shaped my life.
Thank you. So that's not a rebuttal, but you have the same question back, just flipped. I'll read it again. You both seem to agree that success and failure shape us. Failure teaches us. Success, or the hope for success, motivates us. But the topic asks which plays a larger role. Can you explain how your argument explicitly makes the case that failure plays a larger role than success?
Absolutely. So to play a larger role goes two directions. It can help you or it can just take you apart. And I would argue that failure plays a much larger role because it shapes you. And by shaping, I'm not saying the shape that you want to be. I'm saying the shape that you end up becoming. Right? So I agree with my opponent that success and the celebrities that we think of, the reason we talk about them is because they succeeded. But I would argue how we remember them has nothing to do with how their lives were shaped. That's our decision. That's our view of their legacy. But what makes them who they are is often how they failed. It's often those situations where they didn't think they were going to achieve the dreams they were going to do. Think about Martin Luther King. He recognized in his last two speeches that he would not live to see the realization of his dream. And my argument here is that failure shapes us and plays a larger role, not just within our own lives, but within the whole society. It's that we work and build on each other. Think about math. The best math and science discoveries are not fully realized in the person who did the initial work. It's the people who came after them. So I would argue failure plays a greater role, not just with ourselves, but also with those who come after us.
Thank you. And closing comments. You'll each have 2 minutes for your closing comments, and we're going to start with Mark.
Okay. Again, I think we need to go back to the original question, which plays a larger role in shaping your life. And my answer is success. It is not failure. Again, success is natural. It is a natural instinct to want to do better, to find success, to go after success. Failure is not. In fact, in most cases, you avoid failure at all costs. Some people more than others, and of course that's one of the risks that you take. For example, if you're learning a foreign language, for example, and I think that's a good example. If you're learning a foreign language, you're going to make 10,000 mistakes. I mean, you'll make mistake after mistake after mistake. But if you're a risk taker, in other words, you accept your mistakes. You don't dwell on your mistakes, you just accept them. And if you make your 10,000 mistakes, you'll forget those 10,000 mistakes once you're fluent. When you're fluent in the language, then the mistakes didn't matter anymore. They didn't matter anymore because now you're fluent, you speak in the language, you do what you're supposed to be doing in the language, and you know the language. Yes, you're a risk taker, and some people are more so than others. And of course, anyone in here that speaks a foreign language, you understand what I'm talking about, that you've gone, quote, the extra mile to become proficient at that language. But the point is that you became proficient at that language, and and it will shape your life. And the point is that it's the success of it that shaped your life, not the failure.
Thank you, Mark, for your closing comments. Anthony, closing comments.
I agree with Mark about the value of success in terms of how it's our natural instinct, but my thesis throughout tonight has been these are sometimes instincts that need to be challenged. We want to run away from failure. We want to block it out of our minds, and I would hope that we don't. When we think about the ends of our lives, we don't think about how much money we made. We don't think about how cool was I in high school. We don't think about the things that came easy. If you've ever played a Nintendo game in the 1980s, you probably know what I'm talking about here. Games don't say game over anymore. That's a big problem. Why? Because it's no longer fun. Because you don't know what it's like to lose every 5 seconds. The value of our lives is in the challenges that we face and the ability to be the next person that we never thought we could be. If this topic was true, that success would play the larger role, right, then we would give participation trophies for every competition. We wouldn't have only 4 finalists on the stage, we'd have every single person on the stage. And the reason we don't do that is because we can't distinguish our lives. We can't make ourselves unique without the ability to recognize how failure can shape us. It can scare us, it can destroy us, or it can make our day. The freedom to choose where it directs you is how we define our lives, not just now, not just when we're happy, not just when we recognize a goal, but also at the end of our lives. When we see what we've accomplished, not just because they're accomplishments, but because what it took to get there. And that was the resistance, and the pain, and the brutality of failure, not success.
Woo! All right, hot up here. Thank you both. Before we go, can we have one more loud and proud round of applause for all 4 of our incredible thinkers for the time of the day. It's been an incredibly exciting summer. Thank you guys. Okay, audience, I sure would not want to be in your shoes, but it is now time to cast your vote using the ballots in the back of your program. So after having heard the arguments tonight, it is your turn to decide whether success or failure has a larger role in shaping one's life. It is up to you to decide which of these 2 debaters is America's greatest thinker. The suspense is almost too much to handle. So Boy Scouts, hey, can we have a round of applause for our Boy Scouts collecting all of the ballots? Thank you. We're going to take a very short intermission, reconvene at 9:30 p.m., that's in 10 minutes, for the presentation of medals. So stretch your legs, take a breath, talk to your neighbor, see you back here soon, and thank you. started in just 1 minute.
Surprise, we're gonna take 27. 27. 27.
Welcome back. I'm going to ask the same question that I asked earlier. Show of hands, who has had their minds changed this evening? Awesome. Who has had their minds expanded this evening? Yeah! That's some success, I think. And now I'm all confused. Okay, so first I wanted to mention there were so many amazing essays that came in for this question. And of course, we can only pick 4, but we do have some honorable mentions here in the audience tonight. So I did want to acknowledge, if you would just stand up when I say your name, and we can give you a round of applause at the end all together. So we have Julie Prestigard, David Lapaco, and Matthew Pate. Please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause for honorable mentions. Thank you for the work that you put into this. Okay, so next we're going to bring out all 4 of our debaters on stage. Please join us again on stage. Mark Bland, Rudy San Miguel, Tanya Abadi, and Anthony Berryhill. Awards. So we're going to start by awarding our bronze medals to the first round and second round contestants, Rudy San Miguel and Tanya Abadi. Let's give them a round of applause for these bronze medals. How are you guys feeling? Ready? Ready. Okay, it's a really interesting time because, we're talking about success and failure. And we have 2 people remaining with the topic of success and failure. So as a reminder, our second place is going to receive the silver medal, the second greatest American thinker. Okay, that's huge. And our winner is going to receive the gold medal. The gold medal, who will be America's greatest thinker. So we're going to announce the gold medalist. Let's have a huge round of applause for the winner of this year's 2018 Great American Think-Off, Anthony Berryhill. So when we were backstage counting ballots, Colin, one of our volunteers, brought up this quote by Bob Dylan that I thought it was really appropriate to share. There's no success like failure, and failure's no success at all. I won't have you guys debate about that, but... So we want to thank you again all for joining us this evening, for listening deeply to the stories and arguments made this evening, and for maybe even allowing your minds to be changed. We hope you take these skills with you out into the world, practice civic discourse, listen deeply to each other, make room for changing hearts and minds, or at least for finding common grounds with people that you don't necessarily agree with. This is all made possible by an incredible staff, an incredible group of volunteers, and including our vote counters who are back there frantically counting away. So I want to give one more round of applause for everyone who made this event happen. Before we go, please take a moment to complete the survey in the middle of the program and drop it off before you leave. And we hope you all join us at the reception at the Cultural Center to meet and greet the amazing debaters, enjoy food and beverage, and continue our lively conversation. One more round of applause for our debaters, and thank you all